Hi everyone, this is Dr. Sellers. Today I wanted to read you a story as we head into winter break. It's actually a winter story, and the story is called The Mitten, and it's adapted and illustrated by Jan Brett. And you'll see in a second why it says adapted. And I wanted to read this story to you because it has a winter theme, but it also has such intricate details on each page, and I'll show you what I mean. So here's the title page, The Mitten, a Ukrainian folktale adapted and illustrated by Jan Brett. So that's why it says adapted, because she didn't make up this story. This is a folktale, meaning this story had been passed down from person to person for a long time. And then she wrote the story into a book. So that's why it says adapted. And I forgot to mention also that this is a Lang Ranch Library book. So if you ever want to check out The Mitten, you can. Here's her dedication page. It says, for Sylvia Kyle, Ruth Ann Johnson, Rebecca Lim, and Tad Beagley. Those must be important people to her. Once there was a boy named Nicky who wanted his new mittens made from wool white as snow. So if you actually look over here on this part of the book, you can see that that is the person who's actually making the yarn for his mittens. And there it is. It's actually a ball of yarn now after she spun it. I wonder who that person is. At first, his grandmother, Baba, did not want to knit white mittens. If you drop one in the snow, she warned, you'll never find it. But Nicky wanted snow-white mittens, and finally Baba made them. So, you've now met his grandma, who he calls Baba. I wonder if you have an interesting nickname for your grandma. I have one grandma, she's Grandma. And then my other grandma, we called her Nanny. And my mom, who's a grandma to my kids call her Gigi. So let me know if you have an interesting grandma name in your family. After she finished, she said, when you come home, first, I will look to see if you are safe and sound, but then I will look to see if you have your snow-white mittens. So she's pretty sure he's going to lose these in the snow. So off Nicky went, and it wasn't long until one of his new mittens dropped in the snow, and it was left behind. You could see it. Nowadays we would call that camouflage because the snow is white and his mitten is white, so it would be easy to lose. And you can see here is going to come another character. The mitten on the other side just shows a wintry scene. A mole, tired from tunneling along, discovered the mitten and burrowed inside. It was cozy and warm and just the right size, so he decided to stay. So there's that mole. He came out of his hole and he's headed to the mitten. And here comes our next character. A snowshoe rabbit came hopping by. He stopped for a moment to admire his winter coat. It was then that he saw the mitten and he wiggled in, feet first. The mole didn't think there was room for both of them, but when he saw the rabbit's big kickers, he moved over. So there they are, squishing in together. And here's the boy, playing in the snow. And here comes our next character. Anybody know what that is? Next, a hedgehog came snuffling along. Having spent the day looking under wet leaves for things to eat, he decided to move into the mitten and warm himself. The mole and the rabbit were bumped and jostled, but not being ones to argue with someone covered with prickles, they made room. So, there they are, all those guys in the mitten. And then here comes our next character. And you can see the boy behind him. As soon as the hedgehog disappeared into the mitten, a big owl, attracted by the commotion, swooped down. When he decided to move in also, the mole, the rabbit, and the hedgehog grumbled. But when they saw the owl's glinty talons, they quickly let him in. All right, here comes our next character. Look at all those animals in the mitten. Up through the snow appeared a badger. There's the badger. He eyed the mitten and began to climb in. The mole, the rabbit, the hedgehog, and the owl were not pleased. There was no room left, but when they saw his diggers, they gave him the thumb. That's because in your glove you would have room for your thumb, so they decided to let the badger have the thumb. Who's coming next into our mitten? Anybody know what that is? It started snowing, but the animals were snug in the mitten. A waft of warm steam rose in the air, and a fox, trotting by, stopped to investigate. Just the sight of the cozy mitten made him feel drowsy. The fox poked his muzzle in. When the mole, the rabbit, the hedgehog, the owl, and the badger saw his shiny teeth, they gave the fox lots of room. Look at that mitten just expanding. But is it going to be big enough for our next character? A great bear lumbered by. He spied the mitten all plumped up. Not being one to be left out in the cold, he began to nose his way in. The animals were packed in as tightly as could be. But what animal would argue with a bear? The mitten swelled and stretched. It was pulled and bulged to many times its size. But Baba's good knitting held fast. Because remember, she made the yarn and then she knit this herself. And look who's coming. And you can still see the boy up here in the snow. Along came a meadow mouse. Look at all those animals in the mitten. No bigger than an acorn. She wriggled into the one space left and made herself comfortable on top of the great bear's nose. Do you see that little mouse? And then now you can see there's not going to be any more animals, but the boy is realizing he only has one mitten. Now, that mouse was on the bear's nose, so the bear, tickled by the mouse's whiskers, gave an enormous sneeze. Ka-choo! The force of the sneeze shot the mitten up into the sky and scattered the animals in all directions. Look at them all taking a tumble. There they all are. And the boy is over there looking for his mitten, and now he's running back home. Only one mitten in his hand. On his way home, Nicky saw a white shape in the distance. It was the lost mitten, silhouetted against the blue sky. So he could see it because it was up in the sky from where the bear sneezed, and you could see all those animals just plopped down in the snow from the big sneeze. Here are the other animals. As he ran to catch his snow-white mitten, he saw Baba's face in the window. First, she looked to see if he was safe and sound, and then she saw that he still had his new mittens. Remember, she said she would check first to make sure he was safe, and then she would make sure he had his mitten. And then, now she's looking at his mittens. And we all know why the one is so much bigger than the other one. So I hope you enjoyed this winter story and have a chance to listen maybe once or twice this winter break. We don't get much snow in Thousand Oaks, but maybe you have some white mittens. Enjoy this winter break, Wranglers. I can't wait to see you guys when we return, and have a happy holiday season.